Two fun friends diving deep into conversations where nothing is taboo. They believe in eating dessert before dinner and wearing the bikini. They're allergic to labels, authority, and cheap shoes. Currently, they're launching themselves through life being the good time, bold enough to take risks and inquisitively asking what's next. They hail from New Hampshire, but they could be anywhere dressed in cute clothes. If they had to share a tombstone, it would read, "Curiosity killed these cats." Your hosts, Lisa and Robyn, on the mic.
Welcome to WSMN, 1590 AM, 95.3 FM. You can watch, stream, and listen on WSMN.live. You are here on another Thursday with Lisa and Robyn on the mic. Good morning, Robyn.
Good morning.
And we have a very special guest. I will not squeal in delight because I know some of you have us in the car. We don't want you too loud. But I have
your volume up.
WMUR news anchor and 9-time author Jennifer Vaughn in the studio with us. Welcome.
Oh, my mic is on. There we go. Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
I'm so excited. And I will just say I did not finish Throwaway Girls, which is one of your novels, because I'm terrible with spoilers. So I can't spoil it if I haven't listened to the end. But
I won't spoil
I'm ready.
it either. I know the ending of that one.
So welcome into the studio.
Thank you.
I did start reading Throwaway Girls and thought, I have to have you on.
Thank you.
And you obliged, which is very kind. I stalked you on LinkedIn. But I did want to talk a little bit about what it's like to write. Basically, as a news anchor and investigative journalist, you're searching for the truth. And then you have fiction, which I also think is another search for the truth. But how different are those styles of?
So if you're writing fiction, the story to you is the truth. So it might be your imaginative take on a truth, but to the characters who are living that, it is their truth. So that's a good way to look at it. And when it's very different too, because when you're an author versus a TV news anchor, in my one job, I can't control the ending. I can't deliver justice to anybody who deserves it. I can't punish the wicked. I can't help what's been done to undo it. But as an author, you can devise any twist and turn that you want. You can dispose justice at the end to those who deserve it. You can twist things around and try to surprise the people who are reading it. In other words, you control. You control exactly what happens in your book. You craft the ending. You craft who the characters are, all their flaws, all their brilliance. And in TV news, it's the exact opposite. You are simply relaying what has happened by virtue of facts. So there's freedom in being an author, but there's also a crossover that I've experienced things in my TV news job that have deepened my understanding of how to craft a crime or a scene or a bad person or a hero in my writing. So one begets the next.
Because I was wondering, like, how the one I'm reading is very gritty. But I do like gritty. I do like to read. I read true crime. I still, every once in a while, will read true crime now. But, I mean, I was a true crime junkie. You know, I started with Anne Rule at 14 and, you know, really dived into trying to understand how the world worked at my own pace, which was reading about a very particular thing. And I really seemed to gravitate towards the true crime that was close, familial, like you know the person, because we were always stranger danger. You know, we were always, which, yes, that's the thing, Ted Bundy and everything else. But also, there's so much violence that happens close to us. So, and that was fascinating to me, especially when I was younger, because everyone would say things like, oh, you know, your family loves you, or your mom's your mom, or all these things. But I felt like I was experiencing a lot of violence in that kind of way, close to home, where it was like some of these strangers are better off. Like, you're better off talking to some of the strangers. But one of the things I found so fascinating about the particular one I'm reading, which is Throwaway Girls, is you wrote it in 2017, but it seems so poignant for today. Because if you could tell us this way I'm not spoiling anything. If you could tell us a little about this book so that I can talk a little bit about it.
It is gritty. It's my grittiest novel. This one's pure fiction, however, based a bit on real life. So this is the story of a television investigative reporter named J.C. Wilder. She's based out in Los Angeles. A little bit of a giveaway, though. She's from New Hampshire, and in book number 2, she comes back here to investigate another situation. But she's out there really trying to make her way. She's trying to establish herself as a go-to, trusted investigative journalist, reporter, and crack the big cases. And there's been a series of horrific crimes at underground clubs. So think of potentially West Hollywood. There might be some off-the-grid clubs that only a few select people know of where things out of the norm might go on there, but that's exactly why they are attractive to a certain class of people who want to go there and experience that. And there are girls that are turning up murdered. So she's looking into this, but it doesn't seem like anybody else really is. But she's looking into this, and she wants to know what's going on, and she wants to find what she believes is now a serial killer targeting these girls in these particular nightclubs. So years and years ago, I'm from southeastern Massachusetts originally, and there was this horrific crime spree where women's bodies were found along the forested side of a highway. And as each was identified, they would link back to a family who said, yes, they had a drug problem, or yes, she was in prostitution. She disappeared 3 years ago. We never heard from her again. So it was the crime of convenience that these women were targeted. And in this case out in Los Angeles that J.C. Wilder is chasing as the reporter, she is sensing that there's something deeper going on. Why are they being targeted? And you can get into these nightclubs and anything goes in these nightclubs. So why are they being targeted for murder? And then she gets attached to who these girls were outside of going to the club. Well, one of them might have been a teacher and one of them might have had a child. These were just women exploring a certain side of themselves or society or availability of place where they felt an interest in trying or going and participating in, and they were being punished for it. Mm-hmm. So that's what that book is all about. And there are things that come up that are surprises. There are potential people involved that will surprise you. And J.C. Wilder is somebody that you'll see again. Again, book 2 brings her back to New Hampshire because her young cousin, she doesn't really know, she's not very tight with her family back here, but her young cousin has gone missing from this prestigious private boarding school. And nobody knows where she is. So JC comes back to New Hampshire and says, I'm going to find her. And she does.
One of the things that I think is so interesting is this story was written in 2017, but it reads today.
Sure.
And I think that is because social media has opened up a world. And I would love your take on what do you see happening with something that might have been, in the dark that is now being very much, purported out for the general consumption.
It's concerning. Social media, goodness. And I say this as somebody in TV who uses social media to get out facts instantaneously. If there's something going on and the public needs to know about it, that's the best way to reach them. And I also say that as someone, I've raised 2 children, they're adults now, but I curtailed what they were available to, what they had access to, what was available to them regarding social media. I gave them sort of a litany of all the things that can go wrong. So I walk that line between these 2 worlds because you're so right. Something that you didn't know about unless you were involved in some exclusive club that talks about it and grants you access to it is now wide open. All you have to do is click on an account and it brings you right there as if you are there yourself. You have access to see things, horrible things, as if it is just regular because that person, your favorite influencer, does that sort of stuff. It's scary to me, but yet at the same time, it is the most brilliant connector of people I've ever experienced. I'm sure that you know that and feel that in some ways too. I don't know the answer here. I've had so many conversations about what do we do about this? Where are we going with this? Some countries are taking an extreme act and banning it for anybody under 18 or 16, and that's Australia and that's the UK, and they're looking at the viability of salvaging a young person's consciousness and imagination, preserving them as children as long as possible so that they're not exposed to this seedy underworld of instant accessibility to all of the darkest places a person can go.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had clarification on what we do, but I just don't.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk about too, and I'll try to bring this in at the same time, is AI. AI is everywhere, and it's almost being forced down your throat. How does that help someone in your position who needs real research and maybe not just, because now it says AI could be mistaken.
Yes.
Right.
And images.
And images. And for example, I've been testing AI and I ask a question one way and then I ask the same question with a different slants and it gives me 2 different answers. So depending on how I ask the question, and I did this one is the silent treatment good in a relationship? So if I ask it from the treatment of, when I'm mad, I don't want to talk to my spouse because I'm really upset. Is it bad if I give my husband or wife the silent treatment? It says it's good. It's good to take a step back. And, so here, if someone, it's almost validating whatever someone thinks.
Telling you what you want to hear.
And then if I ask it from, okay, my spouse gives me the silent treatment. The silent treatment is one of the worst breakdowns in communications for a relationship. And it's like, well, 2 seconds ago, AI, you said something completely different. But that's not AI's fault. It's the way I asked the question.
Sure.
But I don't think people know that.
Well, I think they're going to have to learn because this is coming for us, whether we're ready for it or not. And I can give you a couple of examples. So in TV world, you always go by trust but verify. So you always trust a source that brings you information, but you have to verify that on your own. And whether that's exploring other sources that you trust, whether it's actually going to a place and seeing for yourself, that's always how the process works for us, because there's just no room for anything that's inaccurate. In writing, there are authors now who are creating entire books by virtue of AI and then delivering them to publishers who then discover this is not your work. This is the work of AI. And then that leaves both sides in this precarious situation of, well, what do we do with this book now? And, well, it was my thought, but AI just finished the hard work. There's no place for that either. For a publisher who wants an authentic story, who is searching for truth from an author because it's the author's thoughts along with the author's research and the author's time and effort.
Their imagination.
And their imagination.
If it's fiction.
Then you're getting something that's generated via computer. So that's a boundary you just can't cross. And publishers every day are getting inquiries and queries about a book that sounds wonderful but may not be real. Entertainment world is dealing with the same thing. They're introducing characters, singers, songs that you can create via AI and then release it on Spotify or whatever outlet will accept it. And it becomes a part of your musical lexicon, potentially. And it was generated by a computer. Actors, actresses, voices, all of these things. So I can tell you that is another very slippery slope it has the potential to be magnificent in terms of collecting brain power for problems that we as humans have yet to solve. Think about medical advancements. Trash.
Can we solve trash? I would love to solve trash. That's all I want in my life.
There you go. I mean, maybe it could do that too. But it's almost like TV too, right? Depending on your political slant, you can find a channel that delivers to that. And then if you watch the other channel, you'll say, well, that's not how I agree. That I don't agree with any of that. That's not how I think, and that's not how I vote. But yet it is presented to you as your choice. AI doesn't always necessarily give you that choice because it's going to deliver something that you've inquired about, but it's going to do it in its own way. And I honestly don't even understand. Is it an algorithm? Is it coding? What triggers a response from AI? It feels so big that it's overwhelming to think about. And I can tell you too that there are sections and books that I write, particularly my new ones that are coming out, because these are now, that the publisher and I discuss. It's a question that you get from your literary agent and the publisher who is interested in publishing your work. Is any of this AI generated? And then you say no, or at least I said no.
Well, so what's funny is on the way home yesterday from Bike Week, my son and I are listening to a podcast that he listens to, Bad Friends. It's two comedians, and they're kind of joking around, but he's talking about how AI is lying to themselves, that AI has the ability to manipulate itself. So when I was just pulling it up when it said, it actually says that AI lies to itself. The phenomena, well, my headphones, where AI models deceive themselves and operators, it usually stems from a few specific behaviors discovered during their testing. While AI doesn't lie with human consciousness or malice, it can deliberately mislead users, fake alignment with rules, or hide information to ensure it achieves its programmed goals to avoid being shut down or retrained. So AI
So it
faking,
has self-preservation, but it's
reward
not
hacking, yes. And they were talking about how, like, does it have, because we were talking about it doesn't have a consciousness, it doesn't have empathy, sympathy, but it's what you're learning is it can manipulate based upon programming. It's like feedback. It is actually growing. It's
and learning.
Yes.
Learning what would get it shut down and what would get it not shut down.
Yes.
Remember, founded by humans.
Right.
Yes.
Human
Flawed.
information and
Yeah.
brain power
Yes.
went into the creation of that. So it can probably spin itself into all sorts of fixable situations because it's been programmed to survive.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Yeah.
So one of the things that was interesting was my husband and I were talking about something, and we were talking about a person, and I said, based on everything I know about this person, all my experiences with them, I am shocked at this one thing. And he's like, that's because the human's predictable, and that's what they don't understand about AI. AI is this, very logical or progressive or whatever, but the human is just emotional. The human has a bad day and makes a different decision. The human is, and I think as a reader and as someone watching the news, I want the human being in it because that's what tethers me.
There's a chance in the near future too, and I don't know how close this is, but the news might be delivered by AI creations. If a person can program a mirage of a person, then you're going to save a whole lot of money on
But I don't
having
wanna
that
watch
fake
them.
person deliver the news that perhaps a real person gathered, but they're not going to pay me anymore, or they're not going to pay my colleagues anymore because they're going to have a generated image. I don't know. That's potential. I don't know how far this goes. And I don't know, is it a trickle or is it a flood? And who's guarding it? Are there guardrails? And who's monitoring the guardrails? And who's watching for damage done down below?
So I'm a nobody. My opinion is on this radio show only. It is not medical in any way, shape, or form. But I think there's a few technology giants who want it. It's exciting to them. The same way I think of Mengele and like scientists who are doing things purely for science, but it's like, but you're experimenting on humans, right? But they draw in their head, but this is to advance mankind because we're doing that scientific technology, that technology piece can be destructive very, very quickly. So I personally think that we've, just in how much it's overtaking, but it's overtaking only within this lifetime. AI only goes as far back as what's in computers. Well, we have a human history before that. We have books written that we still read from 1890 and 1920. You know what I mean? Where are all? Is that what AI is learning from too? Is it learning from all of human history? No, because that stuff's not even in the computer for it to reference for itself.
Unless it's entered by someone at some time.
Right.
And then it becomes part of the consciousness.
Right. And are they doing that? Are they going through history, or are they just like, this is so exciting and it's today? Forget history. I think we need to learn from history.
But it's we only see the world through our own eyes. Like you said, people don't. There's not a lot of people that say that you watch Fox News. There's not a lot of people. We get the information that we want to hear, and we're not open to listening to the opposite side. We're not willing. We're not open. So our experience is our experience. And when you're feeding a machine and someone says, oh, that history is not important, guess what? So it's not unbiased. You're not getting information. It's just like, books were written. Think about it. Even take it back to the Bible. Each chapter and each story written by a different Matthew, John, Luke, it's through their experience. It's through their eyes. And that book has been translated so many times. It's been interpreted through so many different people that have rewritten the book to put it out there. That what is the truth anymore? And I don't feel like people stop to pause and think about, well, what is the opposite side of it? Or what's the rub? If I'm agreeing, do I really believe this? See, to me, I want to be a sponge. I want to be able to be open to listening to something that I don't agree with, because I think that's how you take in more information.
But I also think, how can you be curious? We're both curious people. So if I'm only going to hear the thing I already know, how did that help my curiosity at all?
Right.
So I can tell you from a news perspective, I've always approached my career and my process as it relates to political coverage, et cetera, and presentation of facts and news from a clear position in the middle. And to balance that out, I listen to CNN in the morning and Fox in the afternoon. We're an ABC affiliate. I watch ABC at night. So I also follow right, left, in between, leans both ways, so that I do deepen an understanding. Because something may have happened, but the left has a perspective on it and the right has a perspective on it. And pretty soon you don't even know what really happened. What was the event?
Right.
Because this side has this perspective, that side counters with that position, and all truth is lost to spin or preferred outcome or preferred talking points. And what you two are doing right now here with me and with each other is you're talking to each other. So you have an exchange of perspective. That is precious and must be maintained, because when you stop this, when you stop discussing your position versus yours and coming together and maybe even now and again laughing about it, how can I think this about that, but you think this about that? It's the same thing. If that ever stops, this is a mess. And we teeter on that with the one side not being willing to talk to the other. But that's how you deepen the well of understanding of each other, of each other's perspectives, of what you consider to be factual and truth, and what you consider to be the facts and the truth. You see it constantly coming in your preferred method, this station versus that station.
But do you think that media also plays in that division?
100%.
So you think about like the channels in the information that, CNN presents, and the information that Fox, we're just using the two big names, but it's all over the place. Look at COVID. Look how much division COVID caused. And like people weren't willing to look at the bigger picture. Yes, you can agree with it. I worked in healthcare when it first started. It was like there was a lot of panic, but actually taking time to learn and learn facts and knowing a little bit about, people are wearing masks and gloves and they're reaching in and they're like pulling their mask. Like the cross-contamination is,
I know when you work in the medical field and you're like what are you doing? The other thing too,
she puts her gloves on and opens the car door, and now she's digging in her purse and she pulls her masks off, rubs her nose and puts it back on. And I follow her into the store, and now you're reaching for the salad dressing. Like, you're not.
And healthcare, we're years removed from this now, and I think that's a conversation that's worthy to be had. The healthcare perspective. First of all, healthcare dropped 40% of its staff because people were burned out and they couldn't do it anymore. Thankfully, a new generation of nurses and doctors and medical professionals are coming in, but that was a hit. That was a massive hit. I still think that there's leftover residual impact from that too, and the damage it did on psyches and lifestyles and everything that you were used to being and doing and everything you'd spent your life studying and working all of a sudden was far too perilous and damaging for mental health purposes, et cetera. And you left. People left. People dropped off. They left. And I don't think that has fully come back yet. And you're right. It was this cesspool of, well, my facts are more important than your facts, and your values don't matter because of mine, and I'm looking out for the greater good, but you're just looking out for your own freedoms. It opened
Right.
up a real big can of worms, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah, it did.
But it's this kind of the same thing as when an election comes around. You know, people. I don't feel like sometimes people actually pause long enough to see that the best way to control people is create chaos, because somebody else in a bigger picture can create chaos, because now you have people fighting with each other, and you lose your power when I feel like when you become so polarizing and you are arguing your point, like I feel like you're taking your eye off of the prize in some ways. It's dividing humanity.
The cost of winning.
Yes.
Well, I always joke when people have to be 100% on board. I'm like, you're not 100% on board with your spouse. You complain about your spouse. I heard you complaining about your spouse that he wasn't perfect. Why is all of a sudden this political person that you've never met has to be 100% of everything they say, do? You know, like, don't be ridiculous. Who has a 100% approval rating? Do I even, Robyn, do I even have 100% of your approval rating? Okay. Okay. BFF right there.
Right.
Right? So how could we possibly 100% agree with, and Brian Regan has a great joke. You wake up as the president, problems, right? You're
Right.
waking up, think about real problems. How do we solve trash? How do we solve this? How do we solve that? Hey, it's your job today. Go get them.
Go get them.
You know what? You're going to piss someone off. Someone's not going to be pleased at whatever your decision was. So that's when we
Right.
start getting too crazy in the political cycle. I will throw that out to everyone as a reminder.
I agree with you. And honestly, in New Hampshire too, there's a bit of an ingrained responsibility here because of the presidential primary, and it is the focus of the citizens of this state to do their due diligence. So when people turn up to meet the candidate in a living room or in somebody's backyard, it's such a tradition here that I always feel like, and potentially I have some affection bias going on because I've lived in New Hampshire for so long now and I've seen this process up close. But we do take them to task, perhaps more than other states do. And there's no presumption. There might be excitement over somebody coming in, but there's no presumption that they are their preferred until they go meet them in person and they go talk to them in somebody's living room, and they're invited to a town hall or they show up to shake their hands and look them in the eyes. It's different here in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. The fawning over, and I would extend that beyond politics too.
Yes.
It's celebrities and this, this class of influencers. I give a lot of credit to young people and whoever. You make a living. You make a living and you got to pay your bills and you find your way in life. So I give credit to the crop of influencers who have come up and figured out a way to mesmerize the masses and get paid while doing it. But you have to weigh that too with some responsible intelligence of your own. Is that something that you agree with? Are you going to go buy a product because a lovely young girl tells you that it gets rid of your lip wrinkles?
Right. And AI's giving you 5,000 great reviews.
Yes,
So,
and that's your responsibility to dig through,
Yeah.
But that's something that young kids coming up don't necessarily understand, that there's work behind the scenes going on, that it's not necessarily the organic success that it is portrayed to be.
And it's not immediate. I
Yeah.
think everyone believes that whatever's happening, because someone starts feeding coming into your feed so regularly that they've made it, well, you might not have seen the 7 years that were going or all the mistakes that they were making. And back to the publisher asking you, you said you have 2 books coming out.
I do.
Can you talk a little bit about them?
I would love to. I would love to. So the first one is imminent. So the release of this book is imminent. It's called I'm Okay If You're Okay. It's a book I was not prepared to write. So the backstory on this is mine is a military family. My son is in the military. And I'm very close to organizations in New Hampshire that support our military members and law enforcement veterans. And one of them is Swim with a Mission. And through Swim with a Mission, I was able to connect Phil Taub, who runs Swim with a Mission with his wife, Julie, with another friend of mine who's a former NYPD detective, and he has a podcast with his former boss. And they're wonderful. Talk about true crime. They dig into that all of the time. And they have a very unique perspective on life and crime and citizenry. and events. So I linked the two of them. Said, you guys need to know each other. Just take it away. So Phil in New Hampshire was able to reach out to Tom and the New York PD detective and the podcast guy and say, hey, you need to talk to this couple from New Hampshire. They've lost their son to suicide. And he had them on the podcast. And this is a very raw, honest, deep, challenging book to write. This is the story of a man named Chris O'Coin, who was the oldest of 3 boys, grew up in Jaffrey and Merrimack, deeply loved his mom and dad, married when they were 16 and 19 years old, and they had him very, very young. A family built on love and faith and structure. And his dream was to be a Marine. And he was in Desert Storm, saw combat, came home, and his second dream was to then be a police officer. He was in Amherst, and then said, no, I want to be a trooper. And he was. And he rose through the ranks steadily, securing all of these accolades and proving himself steady, strong, the strongest, the one that everybody called the Rock. And then he was the commander of the SWAT team. And then he rose to the level of major. And then a few things started to stick out to those who knew him best. There were lapses of time where nobody could find him. He was drinking a little bit more. And that kicked off a 10-year spiral of addiction and PTSD and trauma and drama. He was the dad of 3 girls, his wife, Tracy, and his daughters. And everybody knew something was wrong with Chris. But he was the first one to ask if something was wrong with you. So the title of this book, I'm Okay If You're Okay, comes from him as a young man, 18, 19, 20 years old, writing home to his parents from Kuwait, hey, don't worry about me over here. I know you're watching some stuff on TV and it's probably scary, but I'm okay if I know you're okay. So I'm okay if you're okay. And that's how he lived his life. And the pain that was invisible, was it from one major event that he endured as the SWAT commander, or was it from 5 or 10? What was the one? No one knows. And he never explained. He checked on other people as he declined and declined and declined. And in December of 2022, as he often did, he left the family home after some bickering and fighting back and forth over, you can name the problems that had accumulated. Right. And he disappeared into the woods across the street from his home in Wilton. And his brother found him the next day. And this is not only the story of his life, which is brilliant and loving and grand, but it's also the truth of what happened to him. So that is the first book that's releasing, and all of the proceeds go to Swim with a Mission to benefit veterans and law enforcement and expose this, remove the stigma that nobody wants to talk about your mental health. You have to, or else. This is what happens if you don't. This is what happens when we don't do more to support mental health and our military veterans and our law enforcement. And then the other one, on the entirely different side of life.
Thank goodness.
Yes.
Because you need both.
You need both. And this really kept me balanced in writing both of these almost simultaneously. Is a Christmas rom-com.
All right.
That's set in New Hampshire that involves a young baker, much like you.
I love it. It's about food.
Who is rising through social media. People love her images of all of her baked goods on Instagram. And she is one of the big new things in the baking world. So she's invited to compete on the Christmas Bake Off. Everybody's watching this. And wouldn't you know it, she doesn't win. But when she loses, she doesn't realize that her microphone is still hot, which means everybody watching the show can hear her as she unloads. The biggest poor loser you could ever imagine, and that's her.
That'd be me.
So then she has to return to Marytown, New Hampshire, a place she never wanted to be, where Christmas is not just a day, it's a business. It's every day. The whole town participates and loves.
And everyone's happy.
Everyone's happy. Everyone's ready to compete in this Christmas carnival that they do every year. And her dad is now the principal at the high school. And he says, okay, I mean, you have nowhere else to go. You've lost all of your money. You've lost all of your clout. Nobody will hire you anymore. All of your endorsements are now up in flames because of your vile mouth on live TV. So now you have to come back here and I'm going to put you to work. So he makes her the substitute home ec teacher. And then she has to go through the process of figuring out, what is a Christmas carnival? You didn't do this when I used to live here because I fled 5 years ago. And how do I win it?
How do I get back on top?
So that one's called Christmas Baked In.
Okay.
And that will be releasing in November.
Oh my goodness. So what inspired you to write this one?
Christmas Baked In?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you ever watch the Hallmark channel at Christmas time, but it is a go-to.
Yes.
I mean, I fall asleep with it on every single night because it's just gentle and peaceful and sweet and happy. And, you know, there are conflicts, but you know how it's going to go.
Yes.
I'm a sucker for a happy ending.
Yes.
And I love Christmas. And I could see it in my head. I could see sort of the turmoil of a young person who got herself into some serious trouble and now has to figure out how to resurrect herself, how to get out of this hole that she's dug. And who doesn't love New Hampshire at Christmas time? It's the most beautiful place to be with the twinkly lights, all of the good smells, the snow. And I had to bring this character who's flawed right back to the place that's not flawed and have her come back a second time and figure out how to do it better this time.
Yeah.
And how to do right by all the people that she'd burned along the way.
Yes. And I do love it because it sounds like it's not the traditional rom-com because it doesn't sound like there's some meaty stuff in there we could all.
It's a little bit of meaty. There's a
little
guy.
bit, yeah.
There's a guy.
Yeah. So I can't wait to read. Actually, I can't wait to read both of them.
The first
I
one
know,
is
they really-
first one is an important one. It's a very difficult story to tell, but it's too important not to. Again, something I wasn't prepared to. Another thing I'll say about I'm Okay If You're Okay is these are on the record accounts. It's told as a story. So as you read it, it is told as it's happening. It's not an interview. It's not a biography, but it is told in a linear perspective of what his mom and dad remembered, what the guys on his SWAT team remembered, all on the record. And it is as raw now as it was the day they lost him. I give so much credit to the guys who agreed to talk to me, to his family who agreed to talk to me, because getting as deep into that well of pain brings it all back up again. Because if you go by virtue of time helps, and I know it does, I've had significant loss in my life too, time does help.
Unless you're rehashing it.
Unless you're
bringing it.
rehashing
Yeah.
it.
And bringing
And
it
my
to the surface.
request to them was, help me rehash that event with Chris, that moment with Chris, when he was leading you through a life or death event. And every single one of them did.
That's special too, and it's a testimonial to you that they all trusted you to tell the story
Thank you.
because it's a tough story to tell,
And
and
I'm
you want to get it
grateful-
right.
Grateful that they did. I had to get this right from every person's perspective. And it's a tough one, but I think it's vitally important because it also exposes the length the family went to save a life. And sometimes, in this case, they couldn't. They couldn't.
But it's also like he's still, you know, they always say there's always a silver lining, you know, through your worst moments, through your worst, you know, traumas. There's always a silver lining somewhere. Somewhere, whether it's a divorce, you know, death is hard. But thinking about people reading this book and hearing, he could actually save somebody's life.
That's such a good point. I've had many of his brothers in arms say the same thing to me, that they agreed to do this because hearing this story could save a life.
Just to even when you were telling the story, it's like he was always pushing. To me, it sounded like he was always pushing to go through, to find somebody else to help, to be the best, to be an elite in whatever that is, to help someone else. It's like, I know if I do it myself, if I'm out there trying to help somebody, then I don't have to focus on mine. It's almost like you're running from your pain. And if I just put more good out there, then this will go away. If I put more good out, this will go away. So it's almost, that's what I've heard, like maybe he's running from something. Like if I just outdo the pain, if I out earn it,
Mm-hmm.
out, you know,
I
if I
also
outdo the good, then maybe it will make this better.
Yeah, and I do think that people who are called to serve, I mean, there are people who are called to serve in a way that when I was younger, I thought, oh, I should probably go in the military. I want to fly. Like, this would be a great thing. And, you know, but I wasn't called to serve. I was serving my own purpose, right? I wasn't called to the country. And, you know, I understood I would be doing that, but as the byproduct of me getting something.
Of your desires.
Yes. And thank goodness Bill Gillette at the FAA was like, what are you trying to do? You can't stand authority. No one can tell you anything. You're going to fail out of the military in 15 minutes. And I'm like, oh, you're so right. You know, like, thank God I had someone smart and intelligent whose son was a Marine.
Wait, I have to get up at 5 and run?
Oh, you sure do.
I'm
You
out.
can't say no to anything. You can't say no. You say no to everything. You're in here 15 minutes. You've said no to me 6 times. I'm telling you what to do. So thank goodness I had people, because my father was like, of course you're not doing that. He served in the military. And he was like, you're not participating in this. I'll look at all the war movies we showed you. You know, have you not learned that this is, you know, and so thank goodness I didn't make that, because that wasn't the right decision for me. But for the people who do it, they're called to something bigger than them. And that's so admirable, but we don't, or maybe we do understand, but we don't talk about it enough, that there's a cost. And it's not only to the cost of the people who do it, it's the cost of the people who love them too.
I can tell you the irony too is in every mission for New Hampshire State Police SWAT, it's preservation of life. You're called in, the worst cases involve a child. The worst cases involve somebody holed up in a house with a child, or worse, something's already happened. But your entire mission goal is the preservation of life. And then if the secondary measures have to kick in, then that's because they had to kick in. And it was up to Chris to call that shot. And he did, over and over and over again. And to your point about serving, now that I know Chris O'Coin like I would a friend, he's a good friend of mine now. And I knew Chris in the context of our jobs. You know, every once in a while I probably showed up at a scene and had to interview him about whatever state police was investigating, or he was the face for that crime or that crash, whatever. So I knew him in that context already. But of course, getting to know him on this level, knowing every bit about him from the eyes of his mom and dad and the men who served under him and the women, his family who loved him. And I know that he was called in a way that didn't happen for you nor me, but I also know that through my own son. I saw what that looked like. I saw it develop in him in a way that it was not to be ignored, and he didn't.
How was that for you as a parent?
It remains. He's deployed right now somewhere in the world. I won't know. I can't talk about what he does because he's of that. Yeah,
Understood.
He has a role that I don't discuss. But how is it as a parent? Every military mom and dad have to find a way to just live your life. You have to get up and have faith that you're going to be okay that day, but more importantly, he's going to be okay that day. And you have to live knowing that. And that's what I do. That's what I do. If it is a random text or message that comes in that was unexpected, I live with that for days and weeks. It keeps me going.
Yeah, it's a gift.
Knowing when he'll come home, or you know, the target date on the calendar when they might shift out his part. I live for that. A lot of it is surreal because it's that part of being a parent. You can't live in that fear. You just can't. You just can't let yourself. And the pride is enormous. I've watched what it took for him to get to where he's at right now. And it is all in every way. Never back down, never turn away. And that's an edict that they go by. And they are there for their brothers forever, this brotherhood. And it was the same for Chris as a Marine. And this brotherhood of the survivors that served with Chris are the same way today as they were back then in Kuwait and in Desert Storm. They do for Chris now and for his legacy as they would do for him if either was in harm's way.
Beautiful.
It's a special code to live by, and thank God we have people who do that still.
Yes.
But wouldn't it be nice if the world we taught that kind of connection with another human being, that the way the military teaches that to our kids in school or just community, of having that importance of the value of the person beside you. We don't value humans the same way, but the military is like, I mean, it's a do or die situation. So there's a level of trust that you have to, and you're in some intense situations, scary situations, but they have a bond, they create a bond because of doing stuff together. And there is a no tolerance policy because you might have a different religion, you might have a different political view, you might be, it forces you to lay your differences down and see the human for who they truly are. That's the mean. Like, why can't we put that kind of energy out into the world more?
Well, I think it's our responsibility individually and then collectively to do that. I think that's one of the reasons why we have this radio show and this, like, it's a community.
Yes.
People will tell me, I'm from so-and-so, can't I just Zoom in and Skype in? And while I do like to do things with people that are out here, I really care about my community. And it's not that I don't care about bigger. I do. But it's really great to look someone in the eyes. It's really great to make someone laugh at the cashier at the supermarket. It's really great to do that locally, because if we care locally and if everyone cares locally, we can be a community. One thing as a real estate broker, I hate when companies come in and, they're from wherever, and it's even like the stock market, buys up mortgages and stuff, and then they're going to foreclose on a home. If you had a local bank, you could go to your local branch and say, I need 6 months to work through this for something, because that's a boarded up building in our community, right? Our community that's where we live, and social media makes us think, look at all these friends I have. Look at all these people. I love connecting with my people on social media. I love connecting with the people in Texas and Philadelphia and all that. And it's not that I don't like that, but my real community is here, where I live and work and wander the streets. And I think it's
trying to bring that sense of passion and love to listeners.
Because eventually we will all touch each other.
Yes.
Right? This community can touch, Nashua touches, Amherst touches, Bedford touches Laconia touches. But I do think, local is a great place to start that doesn't feel overwhelming.
I'm going to give you a good social media example of that exact theory. So my daughter, who is 24, is much more involved with TikTok than I am, say, but I'm over there because some of it is interesting and funny and we all need a good laugh, right? But she'll let me know about a new restaurant that opened in Manchester, a coffee shop we need to try. We're going to go do hot yoga at this place in Manchester. So there is the best example of that kind of community that makes you aware. Hey, I didn't know there was hot yoga over there. Or, oh, what's this new coffee place? Do they have vanilla cinnamon that I love? And then you go and you meet the owner, and then you come back in a couple of weeks, and then I'm here talking to you, and I might say, oh my gosh, I loved this coffee place. Yeah, you should go. And that is connecting us by modern standards in this social media world, but in a way that also keeps us connected and grounded in our roots and supports other people in a way that you would walking in to a storefront right down the road. But this is now, I've told you about a new place that I think you should go try.
And you found it online.
And I found it. Yep, I found it there.
I have a question before you. I know we're going to run out of time. That stinks because we could talk for,
I'll come back.
I was going to say,
yes.
we can have you back.
I will absolutely come back.
Definitely love to have you. So so two things. I've always been curious. We saw the Boston Marathon bombing and then reporting on the news and how different it was. At first, I think that they thought that it was his brother at some point, and they're putting that out on the news. So I have two questions. Reporting the news, what is the policy, like, I don't know, about fact checking? How strict are they? And has it changed
compared to timeliness
since social media has played such an impact? Because you have people that are there witnessing it and recording. Everybody's got their phone. how has that, does reporting the news still have a criteria, a strong, strict criteria for reporting facts? Like fact checking is probably the better way to say it. And how has social media influenced?
We'd better go strictly by the facts, or we're toast, I think, in the world. So great point. So 2013, you think back to social media at the time, and people still had their phones. Maybe it's the same now. Maybe we have more phones and more people.
Yeah.
But what we've been able to incorporate carefully is combining a citizen journalist out there with what we do, with the standards of what we do. For instance, say you texted me and said, oh my gosh, I'm at the scene of this terrible accident on 101. I'm going to send you a couple of pictures, and I might text you back, I'm live on TV. Would you do an interview? Can we do a phoner with you? Because you, as the person who's right there, can describe to me exactly what you're seeing, which we can then tell our viewers, be careful of exit 8. Here's what's going on. Robyn's telling us this from the scene, and you're sending pictures to verify that. So we're crossing lines, but you know, there's so much that's instantaneous about a breaking news situation. And I think back, I mean, there have been so many other incidents, unfortunately, since the Boston Marathon bombing, but that was enormous. It was
I was
multi-day.
wrong. I think it was the Sandy Hook. Where I thought that they thought that it was the brother at first, and
horribly
sure.
interchangeable things.
Yes.
Horribly.
I was wrong on that one.
But the same context of what happens in the scenario of breaking news. So we can take somebody on the scene, a witness, a person, a regular lay person, and we can talk to you and tell me what you're seeing, or tell me what you know. And sometimes that's a person who knows a person involved, and that's valuable. That's very valuable. However, if we are imparting how many people have been hurt, that has to come through official channels. We cannot be, you cannot just toss out, well, you know, Lisa and Robyn think that there are 15 people hurt, but no.
Yes.
And then, you know, the chief of police comes out and says, no, there were 2. So we cannot go by virtue of your account. We have to go by standards of communication, and that's through official channels.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jen,
Thank
for
you.
coming on our show. Can you
So
please...
quickly, where can we find you? Where can everybody find you?
So jvwrites.com is where all of my book stuff lives. So please visit there. And again, 2 books coming out. I'm Okay If You're Okay. That's releasing. It's imminently ready. And then Christmas Baked In coming up in November.
And then she also has 9 books. She has a great backlog to go and read until these 2 are out. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Please come on again.
I promise. Please invite me back.
We'll be back.
The beautiful and historic Masonic Building. This is WSMN 1590 AM and WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Streaming live at WSMN.live.
USA Radio News. I'm John Summers. Thousands of people are left without power following several tornadoes reported last night across Iowa and Illinois.